Donald held a press briefing in the Oval Office today, and the main purpose of it seemed to be to defame further Kilmar Garcia, who had been released from detention on Friday and was placed back into detention today by the Trump. To kick things off, an alleged reporter asked Donald a question that essentially went against all journalistic conventions. He referred to Abrego Garcia as an MS-13 gangbanger, a human trafficker, and a wife beater. And of course, Donald took his cue and answered the question accordingly. Why? Like, what is the purpose of having a plant like that in the Oval Office? What is the purpose of inviting somebody into the Oval Office who has been essentially told what to ask ahead of time? Well, there are two things going on here. First of all, Donald is a very weak person who is incapable of dealing with real serious journalistic inquiries. He feels threatened by people who have the facts at their disposal. He feels threatened by people who are unwilling to toe the line and to perpetuate his preferred narrative. So he needs plants. He needs the hacks at Fox and Newsmax and other propaganda outlets to cover for his weaknesses, to cover for the fact that he doesn't often know what he's talking about. He does not have the details he needs. He can't remember names. All he has is his bluster and his cruelty, his ad hominem attacks, and yes, his disinformation and propaganda. But what other purpose does it serve to have somebody like that asking questions of the President of the United States of America? Well, it is another way to muddy the waters and make it increasingly difficult for the American people, to the extent that they're paying attention, to sift out the truth and the facts from the lies and the disinformation. This is the slippery slope we are more than halfway down. It is getting harder for us to tease out what is really going on, because the person with the biggest platform and the loudest bullhorn is lying to us constantly. And those lies are getting magnified in outlets around the world. So there's a twofold mechanism in place here. One, of course, is to protect Donald's weaknesses at all costs, because he's getting weaker by the minute. The other is to promote the Trump regime's authoritarian agenda by making it impossible to tell the difference between facts and falsehoods, truth and lies. And the harder that gets, the more trouble we're in. So, all the more reason to make sure that whatever sources we turn to are sources we can trust. Let's dive in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Mary Trump Live. It is wonderful to have you with me. Okay, I was just talking about the fake press, the fake news Donald is always complaining about that is entirely on his side, by the way. But he's attacking the press again. This is nothing new. He's been doing it. Well, he's been doing it for decades, but in the context of American politics, he's been doing it since 2015. We saw it throughout his first term, but recently we have seen, and again, in the context of Donald's attacks, not just on the press, but on journalism, on the Fourth Estate, his attacks on individual reporters, on individual news organizations, his undermining of the American people's confidence in journalistic journalistic integrity by calling anything that contradicts him or, quite frankly, tells the truth about him fake news. It is shocking the extent to which mainstream media outlets, corporate media outlets, continue to give in to Donald's demands. There are more examples than I care to count, but recently there was Paramount settling a baseless lawsuit that Donald brought against CBS and its news program 60 Minutes. Donald sued Paramount for $1 billion, I think. And they paid him. It was a frivolous lawsuit that if Paramount had defended itself, he never, ever would have won. But to make it go away, Paramount paid Donald something like $19 million. Why? Because they had a merger they wanted to have go through, and they needed the approval of the United States government. They lit $19 million on fire, further enriching Donald Trump so that Paramount could make hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. Who cares about journalistic integrity? Then, of course, we have the Washington Post suppressing critical editorials. That is to say, editorials critical of Donald during the 2024 election. One thing we should know by now, you would think, is that when you give in to Donald, just as you give in to any bully, you've lost. Because that inch you give him, he will turn into a mile. So as soon as these corporate media outlets started acquiescing to Donald's insane demands, we must have known he would go even further in his attacks and in what he required. During a press conference this afternoon, Donald had this to say about corporate news media. Take a look.
Everybody before me is happy with what I'm doing. Most of you won't say that because you're radical left. The newspapers are so dishonest. The press is totally dishonest, but that's all right. We've gotten used to it. And we won in a landslide, so they obviously lost their power. I mean, it's impossible to imagine that when you get 97% negative stories, purposely negative stories, even though you've done 97% positive things, that they could, that you could win an election in a landslide, winning all 7. Think of it, all 7 swing states, winning by the popular vote by millions of votes. We had a fantastic, the best is your districts out of 3,000 districts. I guess we won 3,500. We won 2,750, and they won 500. And that's, to me, the best of all. And we had tremendous in every way, the election. And it's hard to believe you can do that when you have a corrupt media. But you are, many of you are corrupt, and it's nothing we can do about it.
Well, let's start here. Imagine being such a tiny, tiny man that the only thing that keeps you going is reminiscing about an election that happened months ago as if it mattered anymore. You won. Whether you won legitimately or not, I don't know, but you won. That level of insecurity would typically evoke pity in me and some level of compassion. But the person engaging in that just psychotic demonstration of a narcissistic injury is so cruel and despicable that I just think it's pathetic. In addition to being dangerous, because he continues to level these attacks against journalism. Radical left, dishonest, corrupt. You listen to that enough times. Well, if you're paying attention, it is quite frankly at this point boring, and I don't understand how anybody can listen to that litany of grievance that has no basis in reality and still think that this is somebody who is who is actually living in the real world. Okay. But the danger is that people do listen to him and they do follow his lead. And that, of course, we have as a leader of this country somebody who's so weak, so thin skinned, so punitive and vengeful that nothing is ever enough. It is not enough that he won the election. It is not enough that he's president of the United States of America. He needs everybody to talk about that every day. He needs people to lie about the margin of his victory. He needs people to lie about the fact that he won in 2016. He won the popular vote in 2016, which of course he didn't do. He needs people to believe that he won in 2020 when he didn't. And he needs every single journalist and every single journalistic outfit in America every day talking about the 2024 election as if he won it in a landslide, the likes of which we've never seen. Thank you for your attention in this matter. All of this, of course, comes after Donald spent a lovely, beautiful Sunday night posting on his failed social media site. He delivered angry rants about how ABC and NBC should lose their licenses. And then last night at 9:59 Eastern time, he posted, quote, despite a very high popularity and according to is his popularity smoking pot or something? What does that mean? Anyway, my apologies. According to many, among the greatest 8 months in presidential history, ABC and NBC fake news, two of the worst and most biased networks in history, give me 97% bad stories. If that is the case, they are simply an arm of the Democrat sick party and should, according to many, have their licenses revoked by the FCC. Yeah, according to many, according to you, I would be totally in favor of that because they are so biased and untruthful, an actual threat to our democracy, unquote. Shut up. Oh, and thank you for your attention to this matter. Yes, every story must be glowing and positive about his incredible accomplishments, even though he has accomplished nothing but the destruction of American democracy, or at least he's trying to. Every story must be about what a brilliant leader he is and how this first 8 months of his administration have been the most successful 8 months in, I don't know, human history. It is not enough that he won. It is not enough that his party controls all three branches of this government. It is not enough that he's getting away and has gotten away with everything. It is never going to be enough. Because this isn't even about just going after his enemies, which indeed he's doing. He's going after anybody who speaks truth. At 10:58, because he wasn't done yet, he added, quote, why is it that ABC and NBC fake news, two of the absolute worst and most biased networks any in the world, aren't paying millions of dollars a year in license fees? They should lose their licenses for their unfair coverage of Republicans and or conservatives, but at a minimum, they should pay up big for having the privilege of using the most valuable airways anywhere at any time. Crooked journalism should not be rewarded. It should be terminated. Unquote. Threatening to revoke the licenses of two of the biggest networks in this country is the stuff of fascism. That is what authoritarians do. Defunding public broadcasting was dark and very damaging to a lot of Donald's own supporters, by the way. But suggesting he's going to destroy two of the biggest broadcast networks, that's a whole new level of threatening. Paramount, thanks guys, in having settled, set a dangerous precedent. And what is that precedent? Sorry, not president. That precedent is that they will capitulate. That they do not believe in journalistic integrity. They only believe in their economic bottom line, that they are indeed okay with and willing to succumb to state censorship. Donald is not yet a dictator. Just today, he reassured us that that's not who he is. And then, of course, in the next breath, he speculated that that's what people might want, though. Check it out.
So I'm thinking about, when I have some slob like Pritzker criticizing us before we even go there, I made the statement that next should be Chicago, because as you all know, Chicago is a killing field right now. And they don't acknowledge it. And they say, we don't need him, freedom, freedom, he's a dictator, he's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator. I don't like a dictator. I'm not a dictator. I'm a man with great common sense and I'm a smart person.
You know who says, I'm a man with great common sense, I'm a smart person? Somebody with neither common sense nor intelligence. You know who says I'm not a dictator? A wannabe dictator. Of course, Donald's threats aren't limited to media outlets. No, I mean, that would be boring. He also likes to spend his weekends watching cable news. Yeah, that's pretty much what we pay him for. Watching cable news, posting on his failed social media platform, and grifting tens of millions of dollars for the American people. So he obviously came across a clip of Chris Christie on ABC News yesterday. So let's take a look at that.
Donald Trump sees himself as the person who gets to decide everything. And he doesn't care about any separation. In fact, he absolutely rejects the idea that there should be separation between criminal investigations and the politically elected leader of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, that tracks. That's pretty much what we're dealing with right now. So why do I think that Donald caught that clip? Well, because he posted a response to it on his failed social media site. Quote, I just watched sloppy Chris Christie be interviewed on a ratings challenge news show this week with George Slopadop. You know what, guys? You know what? Forgive me. The moronic immaturity of this person is as deleterious to our mental health at this point. The prepubescent assaults on other people, the ad hominem attacks, the projection. I mean, it's on some days, it's more than one can take. Because Donald, and I say this to you as I do on occasion, because, just looking out for you. Look in the mirror. Anyway, his rant was leading up to the fact that he seems to be thinking about what was referred to as Bridgegate. Allegedly, in an act of political retaliation, the Christie administration, because at the time Chris Christie was governor of New Jersey, ordered a closure of the George Washington Bridge, which wreaked havoc and created massive gridlock for hours. People couldn't get to work. People couldn't get home. Ambulances couldn't take patients to hospitals. I mean, it was really bad. Christie refused. Christie claimed it had nothing to do with him. And now somebody else was blamed. There was a trial. Christie never suffered any consequences for this at all. But now Donald seems to think that somebody needs to start looking into Christie's alleged whether or not Christie had anything to do with Bridgegate, whether indeed Christie ordered the George Washington Bridge closure. And, again, in another bit of irony, Donald ended his rant in all caps. No one is above the law. Yeah, except you. And then because he's insane, ended it with, thank you for your attention in this matter. And then he reminded us who he was. And I think the only reason he does this is because sometimes he forgets. Today at a press conference, Donald followed that brilliant piece of literature, more like a really fascinating response to a Rorschach ink blot, quite frankly. I followed up with another statement about Christie. So take a look at this.
Do you plan to investigate Chris Christie?
Look, Chris is a slob. Everybody knows it. I know Chris better than anybody in the room. I always felt he was guilty. But what he did is he took the George Washington Bridge, which is very serious. He closed down the George Washington Bridge. And you had medical people, you had ambulances caught up. This thing was closed down. And obviously he knew about it. But he blamed the young lady that worked for him and another person, and they got into a lot of trouble. She ultimately was, I don't know, exonerated, but she got out of it a little bit. But she went through hell. She was a young mother, nice person, I knew her a little bit. And another man went to jail, and Chris got off. And so when I listened to Chris speak his hate, I say, oh, what about the George Washington Bridge? You know, tell me about the George Washington Bridge. He blamed other people, but he knew all about it. So no, I don't know if they want to look at it. It's not for me. If they want to look at it, they can. You can ask Pam. I think we have other things to do, but I always thought he got away with murder.
Well, I mean, murder. Yes, that was back in the so-called Bridgegate. The George Washington Bridge closures occurred back in 2013, I believe. Donald cared about it so much. He so deeply believed that Christie was guilty of murder that he was this close to making Chris Christie his vice president. So weird. So, first of all, who's above the law in this country? Who's not above the law? We all know that Donald was convicted of 34 felony counts in New York State by a jury of his peers. We know that the federal government the DOJ had two very serious cases, including dozens of indictments against Donald Trump, one for inciting an insurrection against his own government, and two, stealing highly sensitive classified documents from his own government and from the American people. Those all went away thanks to a feckless attorney general named Merrick Garland and a corrupt, illegitimate supermajority in the Supreme Court. And as for those 34 felony counts, of which he was convicted, there was absolutely no punishment assigned him. Why? Because 74 million people saw fit to put him back in the Oval Office in November of 2024. So remind me again, who's above the law? Remind me again how horrible Donald thinks murderers are. But this is also an indication of something else that we talk about, quite frankly, and that is Donald's understanding, at least on some level, that he is in trouble. He needs to shut down any kind of reporting that is negative, even if it's truthful. If it's negative about him, it must be stopped. And he wants to put away all of his perceived political enemies. And when I say enemies, of course, people like John Bolton and Chris Christie aren't out to get Donald. They just think he's terrible. Can't have that. So Donald is actually going after them. We know that the DOJ raided John Bolton's home and office recently, last week, in fact. So we should not be surprised when Donald starts to do similar things for his other perceived political enemies, like Chris Christie. So I want to take a look now at districts in Texas. While Texas Republicans continue to do Donald's bidding by pushing unprecedented redistricting in a non-census year, which is unconstitutional, cannot wait to hear what the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court has to say about that. Texas Democrats are still fighting back. And sometimes that can mean fighting fire with fire. And sometimes it can mean fleeing the state so that the Republicans cannot push through. Sometimes you fight with glitter. After fleeing the state in July to delay the redistricting vote, many of the Democratic representatives finally went back home. I mean, were they supposed to stay on the run forever? I think the Republicans would have gotten around it anyway. So upon their return, state house leadership, always wisely spending taxpayer dollars for the best reasons, assigned those Democratic representatives 24-hour police escorts in order to prevent another walkout. This is not normal. This is authoritarian, and it is, quite frankly, crazy. In order to deny Republicans that pleasure, some Democrats actually just slept in the state house. Some protested by staging a lock-in on the House floor. And a couple of very clever people brought their police escorts to a gay bar. On Wednesday, August 20th, Cron.com reported that, quote, Texas Representatives Venton Jones and Terry Metza addressed the monthly general meeting of the Stonewall Democrats of Dallas. The meeting was held at the Rose Room, a gay bar in Dallas's historic Oak Lawn neighborhood, and the two lawmakers brought their DPS companion along for the ride, unquote. Quorum Report editor Scott Braddock even got a photo of the incident, which he posted on his Twitter account. Okay, is that a big deal? Not really. But I think that kind of creativity is important. Democrats really do need to start thinking outside of the box. You know, they have in the past left the state to deny Republicans quorum, so doing that was a good thing. But part of it, I think, is just is helping constituents by underscoring the extremist authoritarian tactics being used against them, to underscore how on some level absurd it all is. Texas Republicans are following the lead of the federal government by wasting the time of law enforcement, wasting voters' money. And this is a way to highlight that. Again, it's not game-changing necessarily, but I think it's time that we recognize there is no one right way to fight this fight. This is a multi-front war with many battles being waged at once. So, one incredibly valuable tool that does not get used nearly often enough is to do the kinds of things Gavin Newsom has been doing. Use humor, use mockery, because sometimes that's a more effective way to get people to think than only to focus on how bad things are. All right, so we know that a lot of what's happening at the White House has to do with distracting us from Donald's very real problems, whether it's the fact that he's been mentioned many, many times, according to his own DOJ in the Jeffrey Epstein files, or the fact that the American economy is tanking simply because of Donald's ineptitude. And of course, there are many other failures, which are legion. Now, he's resurrected the idea of banning flag burning, despite the fact that the Supreme Court ruled in 1989 that flag burning was constitutional because it is a form of speech. Flag burning, think about it. You may find it offensive. You may not agree with it. You may never want to burn a flag. That's fine. That is your right. But who gets harmed if you burn a flag? What does it mean when you burn a flag? Yes, it is an act but it is also a message. It is indeed speech. And therefore, doing so is unconstitutional. Unfortunately, however, not only does the Trump regime not believe in precedent, neither does the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court. So we're not entirely sure where this is going to end. But Donald clearly chose to take this flag burning issue a step further by threatening anybody who does burn a flag with jail time also during his press conference today. Check it out.
Would you listen to this? This is what happened. Flag burning. All over the country, they're burning flags. All over the world, they burn the American flag. And as you know, through a very sad court, I guess it was a 5-4 decision, they called it freedom of speech, but there's another reason which is perhaps much more important. It's called death. Because what happens when you burn a flag is the area goes crazy. If you have hundreds of people, they go crazy. You can do other things. You can burn this piece of paper. But when you burn the American flag, it incites riots.
Oh, does it? Does it really? You know what should be inciting riots? Let me rephrase that because I don't want anybody rioting. You know what should definitely, though, have people out in the streets protesting? Shredding the Constitution of the United States of America, which is what that miscreant does on a daily basis. That's what we should be worrying about right now. And quite frankly, if this corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of this Supreme Court undoes that constitutional precedent by saying that no, flag burning is not free speech, flag burning is not protected by the First Amendment, well, then guess what? The Constitution is even weaker than it's already been made by these people. Will the Supreme Court stop him? The answer should be absolutely, without any doubt. The Supreme Court will stop this nonsense because stare decisis, precedent. One of the best ways to illustrate just how serious the situation we're in right now currently is that the answer to the question, will the Supreme Court stop Donald from criminalizing flag burning? Will the Supreme Court go against its own precedent, undo its own precedent? And I cannot answer that question definitively. Indeed, what I think the answer to that question is, they probably won't stop him, and they probably will reverse their own precedent. And it's Monday. Okay. Breathe, because that's what we do here. We don't breathe for about 40 minutes, and then we need to breathe. So inhale in any way you see fit, and don't forget to exhale. That's like a really important thing to do. Just inhaling and holding your breath, that is not going to help you relax at all. So we have reached our emotional support moment. And yes, again, we made it through another Monday, which felt like Friday. So today, for our ESM, we're going to space. I guess when you're in space, you kind of would want to hold your breath. But hopefully, if you're in space, you're wearing a spacesuit and you have oxygen. So yes, we're going to the final frontier. 200,000 light years away in a distant galaxy, NGC 602 shines brilliantly. There are clouds of dust and a glowing gas cradle of young stars in the making. This is an echo of how the universe began. And it's also a reminder that even though our galaxies, our universe is a very volatile place where constantly planets and stars and galaxies are being created and destroyed. It is also a place of endless calm. So let's take a minute and go back in time and watch. Ah, that's incredible. That is just incredible. Okay. So let's get to it, shall we? I hope that helped. So that was awesome. All right, starting here. Jackie is a new member. Thank you, Jackie, and welcome. It is great to have you. Elaine, one of our super stickers. Thank you so much, Elaine. Hi to Cheryl. Thank you so much. As always, gifted one Mary Trump Media membership. Fabulous. Beans, thank you so very much for that. Comment, just a simple thank you for all that you give us. Well, thank you for all that you guys give us. We really appreciate that as well. Kathleen, comment, love and respect you, Mary. Well, thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate that. Vonda T, comment, fascists have to control the narrative. Yeah, they do. They do indeed. That is why a free and open press is so important. That is why you would think that the Fourth Estate would be fighting back harder, not capitulating. But again, corporate media, not a great idea. Zella, thank you so much as always for the Federation generation. Sorry, discounted due to furball farm donations, kidding priorities. I think that's perfectly fair. Thank you, Zella. Eileen, thank you very much. It's very generous of you and much appreciated. Comment, Cherie and Evie asked me to send this. They said their purrs. Thanks, guys. They deserve a treat. Bridget from Germany. Good evening, dear friends. Well, thank you, Bridget from Germany. It is very good to have you here. It's late there. Michael, thank you so much, Michael. Governor Westmore and J.B. Pritzker fighting back. Yeah, you know what? I haven't mentioned Governor Moore, and I should. He's definitely fighting the good fight as well. And I mean, I haven't heard anything from her recently, but despite being disappointing in other regards, New York Governor Kathy Hochul seems to understand what's going on. So looking forward to other blue state governors joining the fight. That's what it's going to take. Canada in the house. Elbows up, guys. Thank you, D-Bid. That's very kind of you. Question, even when Donnie is gone, there are many more to carry this regime's agenda. Agree. Yeah, I've been saying this for a while. Donald's not the problem anymore. I mean, he's a problem because he's just insufferable and cruel and awful. But I wouldn't suggest that he's in charge of everything. You know, the whole point of the last 8 to 10 years in the Republican Party has been to rig the system, weaken and or destroy our agencies and institutions so that it doesn't matter who the standard bearer is. J.D. Vance could not possibly win a presidential election. No way. Not on a level playing field. They don't want a level playing field. So yeah. And also, the people who are in charge now will be in charge if J.D. Vance were to become president. So not much is going to, not much of in terms of how things are done will change. But because of that, things will get worse. Oh, I like this one. Thank you, Michael. Comment. He is such a loser. Yeah. It's it's just I will never ever completely be able to wrap my head around somebody can look at that and think, "Oh, what a strong, powerful leader. What a brilliant man." No. Kelly H0878 comment, liar. Yeah, that says it all. Succinct and to the point. Susan, thank you so much. As always, gifted 5 Mary Trump Media memberships. Thank you so much. Paul, comment. He has no soul. Nope. He does not. No empathy, no compassion, no love. In the middle of nowhere, gifted 1 Mary Trump Media membership. Thank you so much for that. Really kind of you. Susan, thank you again. Comment. Mary bringing all the receipts tonight with snark. Yeah, sometimes I'll tell you. Snark is the only way to get through it. Mary, thank you very, very much. Comment. Thanks everyone at Mary Trump Media for weeding through the bullshit and keeping me sane. Plus kitty treats. Exactly. Like how much better could it possibly be? Well, I mean, some things could be better. Blue Lady, thank you so much. Gifted 1 Mary Trump Media membership. Fantastic. Regina, thank you as always. Comment, Donnie just can't take it. Keep it coming. Yeah, he really can't. And it, again, the other thing that has mystified me since 2020 is why Democrats didn't figure out a way to keep piling on when it would have mattered. I mean, I'm not saying what Pritzker and Newsom, et cetera, are doing now doesn't matter. It does. But it would have had a lot more impact in 2020. In the middle of nowhere, again, thank you so much. Comment, I am so sick of the misuse of Democrat versus Democratic grammar, the difference between knowing your shit and knowing your shit. And as far as trolls, I see. Sorry. As far as Trump trolls Trump, you are the former and he is the latter. Thank you. Yes. Wait, on the former? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I was looking at the Democrat versus Democrat. Yes. When you use Democrat as an adjective, you just sound like an idiot. Like, I don't really understand what the point is. You sound stupid and illiterate and uneducated and or petty. It's democratic. I don't understand how that became an insult. Wild. Kat, thank you very, very much, Kat. Question, if GOP rigs the 26 elections, is it basically over for us and the Dems will never again back control? Let's not go there. It's early days. It's not exactly early. We have an election coming up in a little over a year. It would be very difficult for the Republicans. First of all, the Republicans can't rig elections in blue states with blue state attorneys general. They just can't. So Donald can lie all he wants about his power or the federal government's power to control state elections. No such power exists. So they can't rig the election in that way. What they can do is continue the onslaught of propaganda and disinformation and voter subversion, voter suppression, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what we need to be very vigilant about and counter at every opportunity. And that's where blue state governors and attorneys general and secretaries of state, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, come in, right? So no, we can't. We have to win. Let's put it this way. We have to win in 2026. That's all there is to it. So we have to do everything in our power to make sure that happens. Vera, thanks so very much. Vera, that's awesome. Comment, I noticed the bruise on his right hand looks fresh. I'm wondering if he is getting some sort of IV blood infusions. Question, any thoughts on this, Mary? I don't have any. I'm not a doctor, but I I was in the hospital a lot when I was a kid, and it's very unusual to have an IV put here as opposed to here, right? The only time that happens, or in your wrist, is if they can't find a vein in your arm. But I don't know. I have no idea. Obviously, something's going on because this has happened before. Like, it's been an issue for a while. People have been noticing for a while that he has these bizarre bruises on his hands, but no idea what's going on. We know about enough of his problems, quite frankly. So, but if it is something health related, then American people have every right to know what it is. But we will never be told. So, oh well. Michael, comment. I blame Mitch McConnell for Donnie. I blame Mitch McConnell for practically everything. Up until quite recently, in fact, I described Mitch McConnell as the greatest traitor to this country since Robert E. Lee. The difference between Mitch McConnell and Robert E. Lee was that Robert E. Lee attacked us from without. He declared war against us. Mitch McConnell did everything in his power to take us down from within by using our own system against us. So yeah, I blame Mitch McConnell for many, many. So, oh, that was weird. I don't know if you could hear and see me, but I couldn't hear or see myself. So my apologies. Um, anyway, like, I blame Mitch McConnell because he could have made sure that Donald didn't get the Republican nomination in 2016. He could have made sure that Donald was removed from office or was not allowed to run again by being convicted in the Senate. However, I think that the direct precursors to Donald are Richard Nixon, Reagan, and George W. Bush. Anyway, they're all awful. Karen, question. At what point would the 25th Amendment be applied to him? Oh, never. Never. I mean, unless his behavior becomes so, I mean, like, his behavior already is so beyond the pale, so egregious, so insane. But like, unless he starts doing things that even Republicans can't handle. My internet keeps going out, which is unusual because I'm in New York and we have really good internet. Anyway, back to it. Philip, comment. Charlie Chaplin used humor to mock Hitler. Charlie, yes, brilliantly and so effectively. Just it is an essential tool in this fight. It's not the only one, but it's a deeply, deeply important and effective one. And we neglect it to our peril. Rock and steady. Thank you so very much. Comment, ready for Friday. Yeah, no kidding. Cheers, David. Well, David, I'm with you, but it's Monday. So we'll just have to pace ourselves. Or try. Susan, thank you again. My goodness. Comment, Monday fee. Yeah. Breathe and exhale. This community rocks. This community does rock. It rocks even better and harder when it remembers to exhale. Don't hold your breath. Marshall, thank you so very much for that. Pink Nightmare, thank you very, very much. That's an insanely beautiful fee. Yeah, right? I mean, outer space, just incredible. Joe is a super sticker. Thank you so very much for that, Joe. And Catherine, another super sticker. Thank you, Catherine. That's okay. We're almost done, which is good because I don't know what's happening with my internet. Okay, Catherine gifted 1 Mary Trump Media membership. Thank you so much. And here she is again. Catherine, a super sticker. Thank you, Catherine. That is most excellent of you. And wrapping it up, Neely gifted 10 Mary Trump Media memberships. That is very generous of you and so very much appreciated. All right, you guys are amazing. Thank you for everybody watching on YouTube, to everybody streaming on Twitter and at my Substack, The Good in Us, to everybody listening to the podcast. Easiest way to support us, please become a subscriber to our channel. Second easiest way to support us is watch. We have pre-recorded videos dropping every day, at least 2, 7 days a week. So check those out, watch them, like them, share them, comment on them. It helps us tremendously and it doesn't cost anything. And hopefully you'll be entertained and enlightened in the process. Thank you to everybody who became a new member, everybody who gifted new memberships, to all of our super stickers, everybody giving us donations. You guys are amazing. And we couldn't do it without you, and we wouldn't, quite frankly. To our amazing moderators, thanks as always, guys, for doing such incredible work. Really, just because you're awesome. And of course, to my amazing team, it's hard to believe because they're so incredible, but they get better every day. And I am more grateful to them than I can say. So thanks, guys. Great day today. And I will be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern for Mary Trump Live. That's Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. And of course, Sundays, we have Ask Mary Anything within reason at 6 p.m. Eastern. And again, just to remind you, don't forget about the videos that we have dropping every single day. So that does it for us. I will see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. In the meantime, everybody, please stay safe and be kind. Good night.